Reborn into this world by Saber Chapter 6. The Awakening of Power. Surprise, surprise, I finished it, way before Friday. Although to be fair, I had to do this fast because tomorrow I have a lot of things to do, so if there's any inconsistency found, please tell me. Also, if you're wondering how the hell can I post this fast, the answer is that I already have them like notes and stuff, like a small gist of ideas that I can expand. I just had to convert them into a story and improve in any way I can. Anyways, enjoy this chapter. The testing chamber had induced a dramatic transformation. What was once a sterile, clinical space focused on observation had morphed into a full-scale combat chamber, a battleground echoing with the memories of past experiments. Layers of the latest high-tech protective barriers reinforced the room, standing as sentinels against the chaos that had unfolded within its walls. Armed personnel stood vigilant behind bullet-resistant glass, their eyes scanning the environment with a mix of tension and anticipation. The chamber now bore the scars of millions of magical experiments, each one a testament to the trials that had taken place here. Scorch marks marred the once gleaming walls, and deep dents, like battle wounds, told the story of endless magical stress tests that had pushed Rimuru to its very limits. Despite the extensive testing and rigorous training conducted by Youjo, the technicians and repairmen had rarely found time to fix the damage. The walls, though battered, remained surprisingly robust, resilient against the stress they had endured. Yet, for all the preparations made in this space, no one could have anticipated the sheer magnitude of power that Rimuru was about to unleash. From the upper observation platform, Rudersdorf, Zetor, and a cadre of other high-ranking military officials, all clad in their distinct, authoritative uniforms, watched intently. The atmosphere was thick with a mix of excitement and uneasiness. Youjo, usually a whirlwind of manic energy, was now focused, his intensity barely contained as he hovered over the control panel. His eyes were glued to the readings monitoring Rimuru's magical output. Their flickering numbers reflected both promise and peril. The entity standing in the chamber below had endured a remarkable metamorphosis. No longer an amorphous being of shifting shapes, Rimuru had taken on a refined, humanoid form, an ethereal figure with youthful features and sharp, intelligent eyes that glimmered with an inner light, masking a power both immense and enigmatic. It was a form that suggested grace and strength, exuding a quiet confidence that seemed almost palpable. At the center of the room, Rimuru stood motionless, emanating an aura of calm assurance. Around its neck hung the newest version of the Operation Orb, a device pulsing with barely contained energy, its surface a riot of colors and intricate designs. Youjo had designed this orb specifically for Rimuru, a masterpiece he had named the Genesis type. Adaptive Resonance. Operation Orb. The orb shimmered with complex layers of magic, signaling its unparalleled capacity to channel S-rank magical power. Yet, even as it glowed with potential, the atmosphere was charged with an electric anticipation. Something unprecedented was on the brink of occurring. Before we begin the test, allow me to introduce our latest breakthrough, Youjo announced, his voice crackling with excitement as he adjusted his glasses, the lenses glinting under the harsh lights. He wheeled out a movable blackboard covered with blueprints and infographics, revealing the orb's intricate design. The officials leaned forward, captivated by the complexity of the device, their eyes wide with curiosity and concern. As Youjo spoke, the Genesis orb around Rimuru's neck pulsed rhythmically, each throb resonating with a magic so potent that even the seasoned officers could feel its weight from behind the protective glass. This new operation orb I call the Genesis Type 00. Adaptive Resonance. It is designed to enhance Rimuru's magical efficiency and control, Youjo explained, practically glowing with pride as he gestured toward the glowing device. However, since it's still in the prototype phase, we haven't perfected it yet. There are also limitations to it. The room fell silent as the weight of his words hung in the air. The officials exchanged uneasy glances, the excitement of discovery mingling with the dawning realization of the risks involved. The orb can sync with Rimuru's magical essence, allowing him to channel immense power, Youjo continued, the gravity of the situation evident in his tone. But the connection is not always stable. This instability can lead to wild fluctuations in power output, and at times, spells may trigger unexpected reactions. Additionally, the orb's capacity for stronger magic is still restricted. Complex spellcasting could cause overloads that destabilize both Rimuru and the orb itself. He paused, allowing the implications of his explanation to settle into the minds of the listeners. They were on the precipice of something groundbreaking, yet the potential for disaster loomed ominously in the background. And finally, Shugal added, almost hesitantly, his voice lowering as if sharing a secret, the dimensional buffering technology within the orb is still highly experimental. Spells that involve manipulating space-time, for instance, are volatile and could result in severe energy spikes. A curious official spoke up, "You were able to manipulate time. Isn't that a power reserved to gods? How did you manage to do it, Dr. Shugal?" The mention of the dimension buffering technology caused murmurs in the room. Its potential application was unheard of in the military world. Shugal, adjusting his glasses with a slight nervous twitch, answered, "Well, to be honest with you, even for me this was new. I hit a wall when developing the orb, but I had unexpected help from Rimuru. He guided me in understanding how such a spell could work. You could say he deserves partial credit for the Genesis type's creation." The officials looked to Rimuru, their perceptions of it shifting from curiosity to cautious reverence. If Rimuru had provided assistance in creating a device capable of manipulating space-time, it was beyond any mere creature. For them, manipulating time was an ability reserved for gods, yet here it was, an artificial being helping to unlock that power. Shugal, on the other hand, couldn't shake the memory of his encounter with Rimuru during the orb's development. He recalled the moment Rimuru offered assistance, how the creature's eyes had briefly flickered with a deep, unsettling red before returning to their usual golden hue. The voice Rimuru used afterward had been different, more logical, methodical. As if another presence had momentarily spoken through it. Shugal couldn't shake the feeling that something akin to the god of wisdom had momentarily taken control, guiding him in the creation of the Genesis type. Tension thickened in the observation platform, a palpable energy that heightened the senses. Rudersdorf nodded slowly, his calculating mind weighing the risks against the potential rewards. Zetor remained stoic, his expression a mask of calm, yet his eyes betrayed a deep curiosity that hinted at his eagerness to witness the outcome. "Proceed with the test," Rudersdorf commanded, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the other officials. "We're ready." Shugal responded with a curt nod, pressing a series of buttons on the control panel. Below, the armored soldiers standing at attention readied their weapons, gripping their magic-infused rifles, the cutting-edge armaments of the Empire. Designed to fire bullets enhanced with the user's mana, these weapons were formidable. Meanwhile, the energy barriers surrounding the chamber flickered to life, shimmering faintly, a final safeguard should things spiral out of control. "Rimuru," Shugal's voice resonated through the intercom, taking on a fatherly tone that contrasted with his usually professional demeanor. "You know the drill. Defend first, then retaliate." Rimuru's gaze remained steady as it shifted toward the soldiers. Without uttering a word, a soft blue glow enveloped its body, expanding outward into a translucent, shimmering magical barrier. The room seemed to vibrate with the sudden surge of energy, Shugal's monitors spiking in response to the powerful aura emanating from Rimuru. "Fire!" The lead military commander barked, and the soldiers unleashed a hailstorm of glowing, blue-tinted magical bullets. The air hummed with mana as the rounds streaked toward Rimuru, only to be met with its barrier. To the astonishment of everyone watching, the barrier absorbed the barrage with unsettling ease, shimmering faintly but showing no signs of weakening. Shugal scribbled furiously in his notebook, his eyes darting between the live readings and the scene unfolding in the chamber. "Incredible," he muttered to himself, his excitement barely contained. As the assault continued, Rudersdorf raised an eyebrow, his voice filled with suspicion. "Is it just me, or is that barrier growing stronger with each hit?" Zetor, ever the analyst, nodded in agreement. "It's absorbing the energy from the bullets, reinforcing itself. A fascinating phenomenon, indeed." After using most of the ammunitions they had, one of the officers received the word from Shugal to start the next phase, and ordered a soldier to turn toward the anti-aircraft gun mounted in the corner and aim it at Rimuru. The massive weapon, designed to pierce even the toughest magical defenses, locked onto Rimuru with a mechanical precision. A blaring red alarm echoed throughout the chamber, signaling the use of this extreme measure. The soldiers hastily evacuated the area, retreating behind reinforced cover as the doors sealed shut with a heavy clang. "Are you sure about this?" Rudersdorf asked, a flicker of doubt creeping into his eyes as he observed the scene unfolding below. "As ready as we'll ever be," Zetor responded, his gaze unwavering, fixed on Rimuru. "But I hope it's up to the challenge." With a deafening thud, the gun fired. High-powered, non-magical shells hurtled through the air, slamming into Rimuru's concentrated barrier. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through the entire chamber, causing the very structure to tremble under the pressure. Yet, Rimuru remained still, its barrier glowing brighter with each successive hit, a beacon of resilience. It didn't falter. It didn't even waver. Its eyes flickered with a mix of gold and red, a sign of Great Sage's influence, and a calm yet calculating voice rang out in Rimuru's mind. Less than energy successfully converted. Magic levels stabilized. Greater than. Great Sage had finally truly awakened after months had passed during its dormancy. The soldiers were dumbfounded. What in the world? One of them muttered, eyes wide with disbelief. Even the seasoned military officers couldn't believe their eyes. Rudersdorf's jaw clenched tightly. This isn't possible, he muttered, disbelief coloring his usually composed tone. No amount of magic poured into a barrier could withstand that level of firepower. Unless, Shugul interrupted, eyes gleaming with excitement, Rimuru's ability is no mere barrier but something else entirely. It's not deflecting the attack. It's absorbing the raw energy from the anti-aircraft shells. It's getting stronger by feeding off their force. This is also possible thanks to the Genesis type, he said, almost to himself. The orb is allowing Rimuru to channel energy beyond anything we've seen. Zetor nodded slowly, his analytical gaze fixated on Rimuru. So it's adapting. Rimuru's power is growing with every assault, I see. As the realization sank in, Rimuru's thoughts drifted back, pulled into the depths of his mind where memories began to unfurl like pages in a forgotten book. Years before Rimuru was discovered. In the stillness of a vast, unfamiliar landscape, Rimuru stirred from his rebirth. The world around him resembled a blend of vibrant nature and industrial remnants, evoking echoes of a time before great wars. He had no memories of his past life, only instincts driving him to explore his surroundings. At first, Rimuru moved instinctively, shape-shifting into various forms he had absorbed from small creatures, plants, and even a gentle breeze. Each transformation a fleeting experiment in survival. The warm sunlight felt foreign yet comforting on his liquid form. While Rimuru instinctively absorbed small magical energies and nutrients from the environment, Great Sage observed silently from the recesses of his consciousness. Though semi-active, its fragments analyzed everything, calculating the best ways to help Rimuru adapt without overwhelming his new form. It preserved his mana, guiding him to absorb only what was necessary to avoid exhausting himself. Rimuru would often find himself drawn to the remnants of human infrastructure. A dilapidated building here, a rusted machine there, each discovery igniting curiosity. In one instance, he stumbled upon a cracked fountain, its water shimmering brightly. Without a second thought, he transformed into a small creature and began drinking, instinctively drawing the energy within it. Back to the test chamber. As the echoes of his early instincts faded, Rimuru returned to the present, standing strong against the onslaught of the gun. The officials in the observation deck erupted in applause, unaware of the deeper truth beneath Rimuru's astonishing display. The full reality of Rimuru's abilities remained hidden even from the keenest observers. The truth was that Rimuru's skill, one of his surviving active skills, was unique skill, gluttony. This powerful and insatiable ability had surprisingly adapted to the environment of this new world. In their original world, magic had been abundant, but here, it was drastically lower. Yet, gluttony, with the help of Great Sage, the ever-adaptable, had found a way to thrive in this different environment, taking all possible forms of energy from kinetic, magical, or otherwise and converting them into magic. Great Sage had observed and learned, creating strategies that kept Rimuru safe while allowing him to grow stronger. It had quietly analyzed the dynamics of the new world, determining how to preserve Rimuru's mana and ensure his survival. As the officials marveled at the results of the test, none of them knew the full extent of Rimuru's true abilities or the lengths to which Great Sage had gone to keep him safe. Remarkable, Rudersdorf admitted, his voice tinged with newfound respect. You've shown his defensive capabilities, but can it fight back? Shugul leaned into the microphone, his excitement palpable. Rimuru, now. Show them what you've learned. Without hesitation, Rimuru extended its hand, and blue energy crackled in the air, forming a swirling, radiant sphere of magic in its palm. The very atmosphere in the chamber shifted, growing dense with power, a tangible energy that resonated with the promise of what was to come. The air pressure in the room seemed to drop, as an oppressive aura filled the chamber, emanating from the operation orb. Faces of the officials were frozen in shock, eyes wide, as they watched the sphere pulsate with raw, untamed energy. Shugel's heart pounded in his chest, torn between fear and fascination as he witnessed the magic Rimuru had unleashed without even a single incantation. Everyone in the observation platform held their breath, their anticipation building to a fever pitch as they awaited Rimuru's next move, fully aware that they were on the cusp of witnessing something extraordinary. Ignore the image. I just yoinked this out of an AI image generator because I cannot find anything from Pinterest or Google for a substitute here. If I ever do find one, I'll replace this one. With a fluid motion, Rimuru hurled the glowing sphere across the room. It shot through the air like a streak of lightning, crashing into a reinforced target with a thunderous explosion. The sound reverberated through the chamber, sending shockwaves rattling against the protective barriers. The target, which had been designed to withstand the strongest of magical blasts, disintegrated, reduced to nothing more than a smoldering pile of ash. The room fell silent. Military officials exchanged uneasy glances, their previously composed facades now betraying disbelief. Their training and experience had prepared them for many things, but this raw display of power was something entirely beyond their understanding. One of the high-ranking officers leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. It didn't even use a gun. Rudersdorf, ever the steady commander, turned to Schugel with a furrowed brow. Explain. Schugel swallowed hard, clearing his throat to regain composure, though it was clear even he was struggling to process what had just occurred. Well, sir, he began slowly, the Genesis-type orb was made to focus Rimuru's magic through standard weapons, for example, the magic rifles or the scepters. But his voice trailed off as he glanced at Rimuru, who stood calmly in the center of the room, completely unfazed by the destruction it had just caused. There was both pride and confusion in Shugel's eyes. The guns we've provided to Rimuru multiple times. Well, sir, they tend to break when Rimuru channels magic into them. They simply can't handle the stress of the energy. Rudersdorf's eyes narrowed. So, how is it capable of casting offensive spells without one? Zetor, who had been silently observing, added with a note of suspicion, what you're saying is Rimuru doesn't need any weapon at all. That's where I was surprised as well, Schugel admitted, his voice betraying the awe he felt. Rimuru informed me that it can cast spells directly, without the need for any sort of conduit like a staff or a rifle. It's an innate ability, a natural caster. We've never encountered anything like this before. His gaze returned to Rimuru, who still radiated a calm, steady presence despite the officials' reactions. I'm working on developing a weapon that can handle Rimuru's power, but as it stands now, the magic it can cast on its own is more than enough. Just to clarify for readers, Zetor and Rudersdorf rarely attend Rimuru's training sessions, so they are only now starting to fully understand the extent of Rimuru's capabilities. Rudersdorf crossed his arms, his eyes narrowing as he studied the monster before him. So, you're telling me this creature is capable of channeling all of its power without any of our weapons? It can control magic? Instinctively? Yes, General, Schugel replied with a respectful nod. Rimuru doesn't need weapons in the way our mages do. Its control over mana is. It's as if it was born knowing how. Like breathing or walking, it doesn't need to be taught. The room was silent again as the implications of Shugel's words sank in. The officials exchanged uneasy glances, each one coming to the same chilling realization. This creature was something entirely new. A being that didn't require the operation orbs, the rifles, or the long, arduous training their mages underwent to command magic. Rimuru's power was natural, instinctive, and immense. An official finally broke the silence, his voice trembling with concern. Does this monster even have a weakness? His question seemed to hang in the air as everyone's attention once again shifted to Schugel, desperate for some reassurance and a glimmer of hope from the monstrosity they saw today. Schugel, maintaining a composed exterior, nodded slightly. While Rimuru's magical capabilities are extraordinary, there is a limitation, he began. His stamina is not limitless. Without the support of an operation orb, Rimuru tires much more quickly. Our tests indicate he can maintain his activity for 2 weeks without an orb, which, while still problematic. But at least it's not 1 month or so, haha. Shugal laughed in a joking manner, but still it provides a window of opportunity should we need to stop him. The tension in the room eased, as the officials collectively exhaled in relief. Shugal continued, in addition, the Genesis-type orb will be equipped with a self-destruct spell, which can be activated by the Imperial mages assigned to Rimuru's battalion. If Rimuru ever goes rogue, destroying the orb should greatly reduce his strength, giving us time to neutralize the threat. For a moment, the room remained calm. The officials seemed to relax, comforted by the idea that they had a plan in place. But Shugal's heart felt heavy. The truth was far more alarming. His own analysis had revealed something deeply concerning. In reality, tests showed that Rimuru could stay active for up to a month without the orb, and even then, he showed signs of semi-activity. What was even more troubling was that Rimuru was adapting. With each test, he was learning to conserve mana, gradually using less and less energy to maintain his strength even without an operation orb. This was something Shugal had been forced to keep hidden. He had sugar-coated the truth, knowing that revealing it might send the officials into a panic. If I remember, it was a 2-month ultimatum. Shugal sighed inwardly, battling with his conscience. As a researcher, it was his duty to present the facts objectively. Yet, he knew that revealing this information would shake the confidence of the Empire's leadership. With so many resources already invested in Rimuru's containment and study, failure was not an option. He had already bent the rules to the point of breaking, but in his mind, there was no alternative. Better to manipulate the facts than admit the terrifying truth. That Rimuru was becoming more powerful with each passing day. The tension in the room finally began to settle, and Rudersdorf's voice cut through the silence. "Continue your research," he ordered, his tone calm but firm. "But keep a close watch. This kind of power, it's unpredictable. Zetor, ever pragmatic, added, and dangerous if it falls into the wrong hands." Shugal nodded, fully understanding the gravity of their words. Yet, as he glanced at Rimuru, he couldn't shake a sense of responsibility for the creature. Rimuru wasn't just a tool or weapon. It was something more. A being lost in time, trying to find its place in the world. As the officials continued their discussions, Rimuru remained standing, its expression calm and unbothered by the destruction it had caused. Its glowing eyes met Shugal's through the observation glass, and for a brief moment, there was an unspoken understanding between them. Shugal, feeling the weight of his responsibility, murmured, "We'll get you a weapon that works. Something that can handle your power, without breaking. Just give me time." His voice was filled with determination, a promise not just to the officials, but to Rimuru. Rimuru's eyes softened, an almost human-like understanding in them. It had learned to trust Shugal, and despite its immense power, there was a quiet reliance on him. A bond that went beyond mere experiments. The air in the testing chamber shifted. Awe replaced the earlier tension, and the military officials began to grasp the true magnitude of what they had witnessed. Rudersdorf, his mind racing with new strategies, leaned back in his chair. A being with this kind of power. It changes everything. We must reconsider our approach to warfare. The Empire could have an unparalleled advantage. Indeed, Zetor added thoughtfully. If Rimuru doesn't need our weapons to harness magic, then we may have discovered something that could tilt the balance of power in our favor for generations. A younger officer, visibly shaken by the display of power, hesitantly spoke up, "But what if Rimuru turns against us? This kind of strength. It could become a threat we're not prepared to handle." Rudersdorf shot the young man a stern look. "That's why we maintain strict control. We need to ensure that Rimuru remains loyal to the Empire. It's not about controlling it, but guiding it." "Exactly," Shugal interjected, his gaze still fixed on Rimuru. "Rimuru has demonstrated a remarkable degree of trust and cooperation. We're not dealing with a mere experiment here, but a partnership. We need to nurture that." As the meeting began to wrap up, the officials started to disperse, their minds clearly still racing with thoughts of the future. Rimuru, standing quietly in the center of the chamber, had grown accustomed to the mixture of fear and fascination that surrounded it. Yet it felt something different now, a sense of purpose. The weight of expectations hung over it, not just from the Empire, but from the bond it shared with Shugal. Rudersdorf turned back to Shugal. "We'll need a detailed plan moving forward. Rimuru's power is unlike anything we've seen. I expect you to oversee its development personally." Shugal nodded, already forming a plan in his mind. "I'll begin work immediately." Rimuru needs a proper weapon, and we need to test its limits. But I want to make one thing clear, Shugel's voice took on a firm tone. Rimuru is not just a tool. It's an ally. We must treat it as such if we are to unlock its full potential. Zetor, thoughtful as always, added, an ally, yes. But still a mystery. We have much to learn about its origins, and the more we understand, the better prepared we'll be for whatever consequences may come. The room began to empty, but Shugel lingered for a moment, watching Rimuru through the glass. Let's get started, he said with quiet resolve, offering the creature a reassuring smile. As the presentation drew to a close, the atmosphere in the testing chamber finally began to relax. The military officials, satisfied and even impressed by the demonstration of Rimuru's potential, gradually filed out. Their earlier apprehension had been replaced with a cautious optimism. Rimuru's capabilities had been showcased to the fullest, and the experiment was hailed as a resounding success. Shugel, feeling the weight of both relief and pride, joined the scientists in a quiet celebration that evening. It wasn't an extravagant affair, but spirits were high as they toasted to the Empire's bright future. They had proven the feasibility of the Genesis-type orb and confirmed Rimuru's vast, untapped potential. Shugel exchanged congratulations with his colleagues, but his mind was already racing ahead, thinking about the next step. Though they had succeeded today, Shugel knew that the real work was only just beginning. Later that night, after the celebration had died down, Shugel returned to his lab. Alone in the dimly lit room, he stared at the new blueprints laid out on the table. The Genesis type. O1 orb was his next goal. A far more refined version than the prototype used in today's demonstration. It would be stronger, more stable, and able to channel Rimuru's full power without breaking under the strain. As he worked, jotting down ideas and adjusting the design, the difficulties began to pile up. Each attempt at refining the Genesis type seemed to bring new complications, setbacks that gnawed at his resolve. It's not enough, he muttered under his breath, frustration creeping into his tone. I need this to be perfect. To push Rimuru to its true potential. He sighed, rubbing his temples as the sheer complexity of the new design weighed on him. The blueprints were scattered across the table, filled with complex calculations and sketches that only made his head spin. His assistant, Eric, who had stayed behind to help with the research, glanced at him with concern. Shugel, we've already made incredible strides today. Shouldn't you take a break? Shugel shook his head, eyes still glued to the table. We can't stop now, Eric. The Genesis type. OO was only a prototype, an introduction. If we don't make something more stable, more reliable, it'll all be for nothing. Rimuru's power needs the right vessel to harness it. His voice was determined, almost haunted by the pressure of creating something flawless. I understand, but you've pushed yourself hard today, we should. No, Shugel interrupted, the intensity in his voice cutting through the air. I can't let Rimuru down. It deserves a weapon that can match its power, something worthy of its abilities. Meanwhile, in the testing chamber, Rimuru sat quietly, the lights dimmed. The sounds of celebration from the rest of the facility were muffled but still audible, creating a distant echo of camaraderie. The creature listened, its eyes glowing faintly in the darkness, as the laughter and voices of the scientists drifted down the corridors. Yet, for Rimuru, there was no celebration, no shared victory. It had played its part perfectly, as always, but now, standing alone, a strange feeling settled in its chest. A dull, aching sadness. As Rimuru gazed at the reinforced walls of its chamber, it could hear snippets of conversations from the scientists, punctuated by bursts of laughter. Yet amid the joy, there were also moments of frustration that caught its attention. Shugel's voice rang out, a mixture of determination and exasperation. Why won't this work? Shugel's voice echoed from the lab. The monoflow is all wrong. If I can just recalibrate the interface. No, that's not it either. I need this to align perfectly. Rimuru felt a warmth spread within as it listened to Shugel's struggles. Unlike others who viewed it as merely a tool, Shugel was fighting for it, trying to create something better, something that could truly harness its abilities. I can't let you down, Shugel continued, the determination in his voice evident. Rimuru, we'll figure this out together. You deserve a weapon that can match your power, something worthy of you. Rimuru's heart swelled at the thought. Shugel's efforts made it feel valued, not as a mere weapon, but as a partner in their endeavors. I'm here, Rimuru whispered softly, almost as if Shugel could hear it. I want to help too. Just then, the voice of Great Sage echoed in Rimuru's mind, calm and methodical. Less than master, your emotional response to this situation is indicative of a deeper bond with Shugal. However, it is imperative to maintain focus on your primary capabilities. Greater than. Rimuru pondered Great Sage's words, feeling a flicker of resolve. I know, Great Sage. But I want to be more than just potential. I want to show Shugal that I'm capable. Less than your capabilities are already significant, Master. However, to optimize your potential, it is essential to analyze the requirements for the Genesis type. O1 orb thoroughly. Shugal's pursuit of perfection, while admirable, may lead to diminishing returns if he does not allocate time for rest and reflection. Greater than. A.N. Funny enough, I was searching for how robots or AI should talk and I got the Terminator scene instead. Also Rimuru had already know, Great Sage, during his time in this world. I mean come on, the dude's been guided by Great Sage, though he still acted by instinct, which led to the whole orphanage massacre, but I wouldn't be surprised that one day he asked for the Great Sage's name in his thoughts. With renewed determination, Rimuru closed its eyes, the distant sounds of celebration mingling with the rhythmic clattering of tools in the lab. The laughter of the scientists faded into the background, replaced by the unwavering resolve in Shugal's voice. I know you can control this power, Rimuru, Shugal said, more to himself than anyone else. If I can just get this right, we can achieve so much together. Each word resonated deeply within Rimuru, who felt the profound bond growing between them. Shugal's unwavering belief in its abilities stirred a flicker of hope in the depths of its being. In that moment, Rimuru realized it was more than just an experiment or a weapon to be wielded, it was a living entity with the potential to impact the world profoundly. As the night wore on, Rimuru continued to listen, feeling the warmth of Shugal's efforts wash over it. The joy of celebration might be absent from its own chamber, but in Shugal's dedication, it found a flicker of belonging. The scientists' cheers and laughter felt distant, like echoes of a life that Rimuru longed to be a part of. Yet, despite the isolation, there was solace in knowing that Shugal was tirelessly working on its behalf. Rimuru stood in the darkness, a silent guardian of the dreams they shared. In that quiet chamber, with the sounds of celebration fading away, it found strength in the knowledge that it was not merely a tool in the hands of others. It was a partner, a force that could stand alongside Shugal in the pursuit of something greater. As the soft glow of dawn began to filter through the halls of the facility, Rimuru made a silent vow to itself. It would support Shugal in any way it could. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead, forging a path toward a future where Rimuru's power was no longer seen as a threat but as a source of hope.